attended court for 4 separate police matters, but was not eligible for legal aid. She was not at risk of imprisonment.
Narelle had previously had very limited contact with the criminal justice system.
She had been raised in Melbourne by working class parents and schooled up to year 11. She went on to work in various retail positions and had 2 children.
When her second son was only 5 months old, she left her partner, who had started using ice heavily and had lost his job.
He'd also started being very abusive and aggressive.
They lost their home, and she was on the streets with her children.
She eventually took housing in a rooming house, but her children were constantly sick and frightened. Other tenants came and went, and Narelle battled just to keep up the rent.
The situation in the rooming house was insecure and unsafe. This led to Narelle herself becoming chaotic.
For this reason, her legal matters had been dragging on. And what began as a straightforward set of criminal charges became complicated due to failures to attend court while on bail.
There was a real risk that she could end up in prison, leaving her children without their mother.
Narelle was referred to LACW for help. After working with LACW's case manager for 6 months, Narelle was able to secure stable accommodation.
She was in her own house and her children were in childcare, and she was able to create the space in her life to go to counselling and to keep appointments for herself.
Her lawyer negotiated with the prosecution so that only a few charges remained. Her lawyer then presented Narelle's story to the court.
The magistrate was impressed with her progress and with how she'd been able to get her life back on track, despite the challenges she had faced.
Her matters were concluded in a way that allowed her to continue with the positive work she had already been doing and avoid the risk of being sent to prison.
Dora is a young Aboriginal woman from regional Victoria.
She had lived a transient life with involvement from child protection from an early age.
With an intellectual disability and mental health issues, coupled with substance abuse as an adult, she was often placed in the too hard basket by service providers.
She came to Melbourne and had a relatively limited criminal history.
But was charged with serious assault in the company of another person.
She denied the allegations but was remanded in custody until her trial date. This made her extremely agitated and heightened when dealing with people.
She was suspicious of anyone that approached her, even if offering help.
LACW's case manager worked with Dora for a number of months, gradually building a rapport and gaining her trust.
The work required by LACW's case manager to find Dora appropriate accommodation was immense.
Several housing and other service providers rejected her applications for help.
It was only through persistent, assertive advocacy on her behalf that a supported housing provider finally accepted her and a successful bail application was made.
The importance of that secure, supported accommodation to the eventual outcome of her matter was huge. The likely alternatives were that she remain in custody on remand, where she would have become more isolated and agitated, or be bailed without appropriate support, making it incredibly difficult for her to remain compliant with bail conditions, or to turn up each day to face her trial.
With this supported accommodation in place, she was able to access services to start to address her underlying issues.
Dora attended court each day of her trial and presented well.
Ultimately, supported by LACW's legal team, she was acquitted of all charges and was able to return to her supported accommodation and get on with her life.
Lily and her partner had been sleeping rough and couch surfing around inner Melbourne for some time.
They had struggled to find accommodation due to lack of affordable and available options.
Lily would sometimes use substances to keep herself awake and safe. She was facing criminal charges of shop steal and other thefts as a result of being homeless for some time.
Lily has been diagnosed with an acquired brain injury and has mental health issues. She has a 7-year-old son, currently in DHHS foster care.
Lily has limited contact with him while she is homeless, as she wants to see her son when she has her own place and her health has stabilised.
However, Lily frequently writes letters to give to her son one day.
Because of her acquired brain injury and mental health issues, Lily gets overwhelmed and forgets when appointments have been made.
She can easily disengage from all services because of the confusion. After initially attending court on her own to answer her criminal charges, Lily was referred to LACW, where she was able to access integrated legal and social work support.
Working closely with LACW's social worker, Lily started engaging positively with the services she needed to get back on track.
Identifying housing as her fundamental need, LACW's social worker assisted Lily to complete a priority Office of Housing application form. Lily and her partner began building trust with homelessness services in the community and were able to access crisis housing options.
LACW's social worker also assisted Lily to apply for the disability support pension and for assistance under the NDIS.
Given her lack of stable accommodation, LACW was able to provide a central point of access for other services to continue to link in and communicate with Lily.
With these supports in place, when Lily's criminal charges returned to court, Lily's LACW lawyer was able to negotiate a deferred sentence, so Lily had a chance to engage with services.
Most importantly, address her housing support needs, which were identified as a major underlying cause of her offending.
With safe housing and other supports in place, she has not offended and is working towards reunification with her child.